Breakdancing is having a major moment on the world stage right now thanks to the Olympics, both good and bad. But did you know that the origins of breaking and b-boy culture as a whole had a lot of help from the world of Hong Kong kung fu movies? Back in the early 70s, there was an explosion in popularity of kung fu films in the West, starting not with Bruce Lee, but Lo Lie's Five Fingers of Death. This was before there was Kung Fu theater on TV. That didn't start until the 90s. No, back in the 70s, you could only really see these movies in a movie theater. They played in major cities all across America, but nowhere were they more popular than New York City, where they played on 42nd Street and Chinatown. Kids living in the Bronx would take frequent trips to 42nd and Chinatown to watch these movies, and at one point, Kung Fu movies got so popular that there were several weekends in 1973 where the highest grossing film was a Kung Fu movie from Hong Kong. Five Fingers of Death in March and April, Fist of Fury in May, Chinese Connection in June, Corrado in August, Lady Kung Fu and Shanghai Killers in September, and Deadly China Dolls in October. And these movies were most popular in New York with black youth. Not just because the action was awesome and not like anything we had in America at the time, but because the lead action hero wasn't white. No Charles Bronson, no Clint Eastwood, no John Wayne. These heroes were people of color, and oftentimes the plots and themes had elements that a lot of the black youth, especially living in a tight-knit community like the Bronx in New York, really could identify with. Then you have a lot of movies that are about an individual or a small group of rebels taking on a tyrannical government or a more powerful elite group. Oppressive clans that are singling out and unaliving oppressed people. The most famous example, of course, coming from Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury, where Bruce Lee breaks a sign that reads "No Chinese or Dogs." But what does this have to do with breaking and b-boy culture? Around the same time as the Kung Fu explosion in the West, early breakdancing was taking shape. One night at a neighborhood party, DJ Kool Herc noticed that during the percussion break in the music, partygoers would frantically dance to the rhythm of the drums. So DJ Kool Herc started building longer breaks by mixing two copies of the same record on different turntables, giving the dancers longer segments to dance to. These music breaks giving us the name breaking, more commonly known as breakdancing. Eventually, breaking became such a phenomenon and the b-boy culture exploded enough that once aggressive gangs started splitting up into crews. And b-boy crews like Rocksteady Crew and the Zulu Kings would come together, and instead of fighting, they would have breakdance battles, coming together crew versus crew, as if it was a Shaw Brothers film like Shaolin versus Wu-Tang, or you had Northern Shaolin versus Southern Shaolin. Eventually, breaking and Kung Fu cinema would collide, with those same b-boy crews walking out of that movie theater on 42nd Street and just copying everything they saw. They would adapt the footwork and crazy acrobatic techniques into their dance, inserting techniques from movies like Mad Monkey Kung Fu into their breaking. B-Boy Quan from the Swift Kids said, as far as the martial arts goes, that gave a lot of b-boys ideas as far as doing things on the floor and expanding their ideas for movement and bringing out their character. Ken Swift of the Rocksteady Crew explained how it felt at the time, saying, 42nd Street was like, wow, these are subtitled. They're putting these English voices over. These movies aren't even made in the States. That's even more like, wow. You feel like you're really a part of something. And several breakers like Track 2, among many others, started learning martial arts for themselves. But also look at this. Look at this. As soon as I saw this shit, I thought, that man knows Kung Fu. That right there. This man trained snake style with Yuan Su Tin. Perfect. This is Kung Fu. The cultural diffusion from Hong Kong to America was so popular that it eventually went back the other way. You have examples like Jackie Chan busting out some smooth moves in Police Story, or the obvious answer of Yuen Wu-Ping's film Mismatched Couples, starring a very young Donnie Yen. Yuen Wu-Ping is a director and choreographer that definitely had an impact on breaking and b-boy style, and now he was inspired by the very culture that he inspired. He made a breakdancing kung fu film. And this cultural amalgamation never truly stopped, with Ken Swift making a subgroup of the Rocksteady crew with the Seven Grandmasters in the 90s. The Seven Grandmasters obviously being a name lifted from the Joseph Quo directed film, The Seven Grandmasters. But I want to close with this. Kung Fu really doesn't have to mean martial arts. Kung Fu, or originally Gong Fu, refers to any study, learning, or practice that requires patience, energy, and time to complete. In its original meaning, Kung Fu can refer to any discipline or skill achieved through hard work and practice. So next Olympics, when you see some breakers throwing down some incredible moves, just think, wow, their breaking Gong Fu is incredible, but it's still no match for my Wu-Tang style.
On guard. I'll let you try my Wu-Tang style.